I very much agree with one thing that Mataji said. A week back I visited, and I think more painful to her than the pain of the body was the pain of taking service from others. And that's what she was telling. I think I would rather go now, rather than troubling others. And because the situation was, she was becoming dependent on others for even basic things. And so that was very true, that in the spirit of a Vaishnava, the last thing she wanted to do was to take service from others rather than wanting to serve. So we have discussed several aspects from various angles, various relationships. I would like to request now His Grace Radhakant Prabhu to share the Varishta Vaishnava committee that they were participating in that aspect.
Hare Krishna. कृतिदा माता जी ममता की मूर्ति स्वरूप थी, और इसीलिए हम लोग देखते हैं कि ये जो स्थान है, इस बेंच के ऊपर वो बीच में बैठती थी और कितनी ममतामयी माताएं उनके आसपास में घिरी रहती थी और किस तरह से अनुवाद किया करती थी के लिए। तो ये जो बेंचेस हैं, ये केवल लकड़ी और फोम के बने हुए नहीं हैं। एक शिष्या के प्रति एक गुरु की कृपा, उनका स्नेह है, उनके प्रेम के प्रतीक हैं ये कि किस तरह से माता जी ट्रांसलेशन करती थी। तो उनको घुटने में तकलीफ हुआ तो प्रभु जी बता रहे थे कि एक दिन यहां पे बैठी हुई थी शायद, तो महाराज ने देखा कि इनको कुछ तकलीफ है, तो उन्होंने ये बेंचेस बनवाए के लिए ताकि वो और कंफर्टेबल बना करके लोगों को कर सकें क्लियर। और जहां तक वरिष्ठ वैष्णव फोरम है, हम लोग बहुत ही वरिष्ठ वैष्णव जो है हमेशा आभारी रहेगा उनका, क्योंकि एक तो जब तक वो स्वस्थ थे कभी भी ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि जब यहां पे बॉम्बे में रही हों और वरिष्ठ वैष्णव की मीटिंग नहीं अटेंड की उन्होंने। और साथ साथ में उनके वजह से बहुत सारी माताएं भी आती थी। साथ में सबसे मुख्य बात है कि जब हम लोग पहली बार परम पूज्य राधानाथ महाराज को मिलने के लिए गए थे वरिष्ठ वैष्णव फोरम बनाने का, तो माताओं की तरफ से माता जी उनके तरफ से एक ही व्यक्ति व्यक्तियों के लिए, और उन्होंने महाराज को बहुत ही पारिवारिक और व्यावहारिक बहुत सारे प्रश्न पूछे थे के लिए, और महाराज ने उसी तरह से उन व्यावहारिक प्रश्नों का व्यावहारिक उत्तर दिया, जो कि हमारे लिए जब तक वरिष्ठ वैष्णव फोरम रहेगा तब तक हमारे लिए वो परफेक्ट आंसर एंड परफेक्ट क्वेश्चंस की तरह रहेंगे के लिए। तो हम माता जी के बहुत 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 आभारी हैं कि उन्होंने इतना हमारे लिए किया, और साथ अपनी ममता का जो छाप है वो पूरे कांग्रेगेशन को दिया। तो हरे कृष्ण।
I would like to request His Grace Govind Prabhu to kindly come and share his offerings. And then we will have Sridhama Sakha Prabhu too.
I visited her a few times, not to inspire her but to be inspired by her, because she was one of the person who had the legacy of what Prabhupada speaks in his books and about the culture of Krishna consciousness. Like yesterday we were sharing about leadership. In the Bhagavad Gita, when Prabhupada talks about leadership, he talks about teacher, parents and an administrative head. He doesn't name people. And she had that influencing character. So therefore, whenever I went to speak to her, it was she had the power to command respect. Usually people work very hard from an external perspective, by dress, by position, by years, to claim that they are leaders. But leadership is not through acquired position. Leadership is acquired through, character. And she had that character, wonderful character, great mother, as all her grandchildren spoke. Her son-in-law spoke with such a... Usually son-in-laws don't speak much about their mother-in-laws. No? So Muralidhar was speaking so nicely. And daughter-in-law glorifying mother-in-law, which is like a engendered species, as Maharaj was mentioning recently. So this is it's a big loss, not only for their family, but the loss for the culture of Krishna consciousness, that she presented, every time she would come and sit here, translating Maharaj's lecture. Nobody told them you should be regular to the temple. They came on their own. Not because it was a counselor's rule that they have to come regularly. Whether it was some big devotee giving lecture or somebody giving lecture, they were there performing their duties on their own, coming regularly to the temple. Another principle what she taught, when I saw her, sometimes we create artificial seriousness about Krishna consciousness. Certainly Krishna was center in her life, but it was very natural. Whenever I went, we did not only speak about Krishna, while keeping Krishna in the center, she discussed many aspects of life. She was a human, and part of her human being was keeping Krishna in the center. So therefore when she departed from this world, it was so natural, because she lived a very natural life. She was a natural daughter, she was a natural wife, she was a natural mother, she was a natural grandmother, she was a natural mother-in-law, she was a natural disciple, and she departed very naturally, keeping Krishna in the center, telling them that it's the time for me to live now, I think I am dying now, and she took counter and chanted Hare Krishna, and she departed from this world. So this is leadership, and we need such leaders, not artificial leaders, who can actually create an impact and continue to create an impact even though they are away from this world. I thank you, Kirtida Mataji, for being such a wonderful example. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. I will request Siddhama Sakha Prabhu to kindly share his thought.
Hare Krishna. So, my mother gave birth to me twice. Once she gave me a physical body, and second time she gave me a soul. She gave me a spiritual life. Many devotees spoke many aspects about this multi-hued, multi-varied kind of personality. It is very difficult to encapsulate all that she was into, this 1.5, 2 hours. But really some aspects where she touched my life personally I'll speak about, because I hope it will inspire all those mothers who have difficult children, or all those wives who have difficult husbands, or vice versa, who are not becoming Krishna conscious for whatever reasons. I hope this will inspire them. So my mother, of course, of all her things, before she came to Krishna consciousness itself, she was already a devotee in one sense, because they had been following, as my father mentioned, a spiritual path since 1967. Practically from the day they got married, they were following a spiritual path. And it was a very natural progression for them. They had a friend, philosopher and guide who was guiding them, throughout their lives from the early 20-25 years of their marriage. Then around 1988, they accepted Ram Nam. They started chanting the names of Lord Ram. And in 1992, they came to Krishna consciousness. I have seen many people who became devotees, who came to Krishna consciousness, but I haven't seen anyone so abruptly changing their lifestyle and, immediately started chanting 16 rounds. It was like too abrupt for my liking, because I was a demon at that time. I still am, but relatively better off. So, I want to speak about my mother's incredible enthusiasm to preach and to make someone a devotee. It was almost like an ego issue, that how is this person not become, how is he so foolish? Why is he not accepting? What nonsense. So she's extremely enthusiastic to preach, very, very enthusiastic to see that I come to Krishna consciousness, accept Krishna. And as they say, a never say die attitude. Never say die. She never gave up on me. And I'm eternally grateful to her for that. I'm standing here speaking to all of you only because of her blessings and her never say die attitude. So in 92, when they attended the Gita course in March 92, I think before the end of March 92, they had started chanting 16 rounds, started following 4 regulative principles, meat was out of the house, onion, garlic, tea, coffee, all gone. And I wasn't prepared because I hadn't attended the course. It was too much of a culture shock for me. So my mother kept pushing me, you should attend this. So I said, I'll try, maybe in my vacation I'll go. So I attended. In the vacation I attended. And I liked the course. I chanted for 2-3 days, but I wasn't terribly impressed. So I kind of gave it up. So that's when the journey started, where my mother started gradually putting pressure on me. She would, very lovingly, she would say, why don't you chant? You have attended the Gita course also now. Now what's the problem? Now you should chant. So I said, no, so I would not do it. So she tried, as they say, every trick in the book. Every trick, name it and, beyond. First she tried with a lot of love, she tried to, convince me. Every day, we would have prasad. During prasad, compulsorily there would be lectures being played. Lectures of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. So during breakfast, during lunch, during dinner. So it was almost by force, I was forced to hear the philosophy, even though I wasn't really willing to hear it, but I was forced to hear it. And slowly but surely the philosophy started going into the thick head. But I was too, no, I can't do this. So, she tried to convince me philosophically. And I started using the philosophy against her. I started saying that, you have said that, it's said in your Bhagavatam that if one person becomes a devotee, 21 generations are anyway liberated. So why do I need to become a devotee? You're there, father is there, sister is there. So many people are there, why do I need to? So then she stopped the philosophy. Then she started, putting little pressure on me, that if you love me, emotional blackmail. If you love me, then you should be willing to, come to Krishna consciousness. And I didn't take to that also. Then it became anger. She started using anger on me, the mother's anger. So even that didn't work. And then finally, as they say, the ace, the ace card, the last trump card, she threw that at me. She said that this is after some 3-4 years of hard effort with me, and it wasn't working. So she finally said that, see, I have understood now that in this lifetime while I'm alive, I will not get to see you chanting. I will not get to see you as a devotee. But I am hoping that at least my last wish is that after, I die. After I die, at least then you will become a devotee. Now this was really heavy because it was like the last wish of a dying person. Nobody says no to that. But I was so hard-hearted, I told her, see Amma, I love you very much and I will always love you till either you die or I die. I will always love you. But in this lifetime, do not even expect. It's not possible. I will never do it. So when I said this, she broke down. She actually broke down because she thought that what kind of a person is this, that even when I say something like this, he is not willing to listen. So, she kind of gave up on me after that. And then after that, what happened was, as Priyasaki said, I announced to her. I just announced to her that, I have seen a girl and I'm planning to, get married with her. So my mother was very heartbroken. She was very, very heartbroken because somehow she was imagining like this, that maybe, I will get him married to a devotee girl, and by marrying a devotee, he will become a devotee. Something like she had a conception. I don't know why she had that conception, because why would any devotee girl ever marry me? It didn't make any sense, but she had that desire that it should happen like that. So when this announcement came, she was heartbroken. So she went and spoke to His Holiness Radhanand Maharaj, and she told him, in a complaining mode, see now what he's done. He wasn't becoming a devotee, now he's marrying a girl outside the devotee community. So apparently Maharaj told her that don't worry, before they get married, both of them will be chanting 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So he made this prediction, and she was very shocked and she was very hopeful. And she came to me and she told me, you know something, Maharaj has told me something about you, but I will not tell you. So I, the over smart person that I was, I said, what would he have said? He would have said, I'll become a devotee. It's not going to happen. So then she tried alternative routes. Because she saw that my, would-be wife, she seems to be quite amenable. So let me try with her. So she and Radharani started to, very surreptitiously, very quietly started preaching to her. They invited her to programs of Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj and, gave us some books and everything. And so I'm just trying to tell you how she never gave up on me. She just kept trying. Even after all this happened, she kept trying. She went to Siddhabakul and she tied a rope there, praying, putting a, sankalp, so to say, that if my son becomes a devotee, I will bring him here. And ultimately, by her very strong desire and by her relentless pressure, somehow one straw broke my back and here I am. So, my mother, this is the quality that she had, that, she wanted to make everyone devotees. Whoever she met, she would give Krishna to all of them. Very lovingly, very enthusiastically. She was very great in philosophy. One thing which not too many people know, she was expert in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And whenever I would go to give lectures somewhere, in later years, I would just before going, 10 minutes before going, I would just call her up and say, Amma, can you tell me some stories related to this philosophical point? Some philosophical point where I would get stuck, the writer's block, I would get stuck. And she said, just wait for 2 minutes. And 2 minutes she would call me back and tell me, some 3 stories related to that philosophical point. So she was really very good in philosophy. But still, and many people spoke about how she was able to very practically, talk about, how to apply this philosophy, this principle in our lives on a very practical level. That's how she would relate to so many people, because she would not talk some hi-fi philosophy. She would talk about how it can be applied in day-to-day life. Despite this, she would very often ask me questions, in the later years, last, let's say 10 years, she would ask me questions, that, okay, this problem is there, what do you think I should be doing? She would ask me questions. So such was her humility, though she was expert in philosophy, still she would ask me. Many people spoke about her sense of humor. I'll just give some examples, because not too many examples were shared. Like when she met His Holiness Radhanand Maharaj, she was asking this question that, Maharaj, so many devotees are coming and meeting me now, and they're coming with, they're bringing Mahaprasad for me, they're bringing garlands, they're coming and reading for me, all preparing me for the final moment. What if I don't die? She said, I don't think I'm going to die. I'm doing quite well actually. I don't know. So she had that fear. And when we took her to the hospital in November, early November, when we admitted her to the hospital, she was actually in very bad shape. She was on saline for the first 1 or 2 days. And after 2 days were over, she looked up at me like this and she said, 2 days gone. She did this. She put her hand around her stomach like this and said, bhook, 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 bhook. Said, khana kidhar hai? Where's the food? So I said, Amma, are you willing to eat? She said, yeah, willing to eat, give me. So then the food came, and the moment she started eating prasad, again her health took an uptick. It was as though nothing had happened in the last 3 days. Health started improving. And when the khichdi came, someone, from the hospital, the first thing they brought for her solid food was khichdi. And she looked at the khichdi and she kind of turned her head away, she said, khichdi ke 4 yaar. Khichdi ke 4 yaar, kya? Dahi, papad, ghee and achar. Khichdi ke 4 yaar, dahi, ghee, papad and achar. So say, where are the 4 yaar of the khichdi? Khichdi have brought, where are the 4 friends of khichdi? So then, they ordered for that. When she was in the hospital, I had sent a message. The moment she was admitted to the hospital, I sent a message to all my colleagues saying that she's terminally ill. She can leave her body any day now, any moment now. So please, nobody disturb me. My team members, I told all of them, nobody disturb me. So couple of them, 3 of them came to see her in the hospital. So when they came in the evening, she was, they was surrounded by some 15 devotees from Chembur, and she was regaling them with some stories, and just generally everyone was having a good time there. Everyone was laughing. So she was also laughing with them. So my colleagues came, saw her, spent 5-10 minutes, then they came out and they said, she's looking very fresh, huh? So I went back inside and told her, Amma, I have told them that you are, practically on the deathbed and you are entertaining them with stories. What are they going to go and tell my boss, She said, you should have told me, then I would have put on a very tired expression. Then, when Maharaj spoke to her, on the last day when he met her, he spoke to her. So, she was relating to him a story about, when he spoke about Bhakti Tirth Maharaj. And Bhakti Tirth Maharaj spoke for almost 5.5 hours. So she was telling him that, Maharaj, after 3 hours of the lecture, she said, I was translating over here when you were speaking. After 3 hours of the lecture, I was completely exhausted. I had just no energy left. So she said, so then I asked Tulsi Manjari Mataji, she was sitting there. So I asked her, Mataji, can you translate? And she said, no Mataji, I am very tired. So she asked her, Maharaj is speaking, I am translating, why are you tired? But then after that she went on to speak for another, Maharaj spoke for another 2.5 hours after that, and she continued to translate. So despite her health, she actually had very bad health. She never spoke about it. Most people who saw her never felt that she's sick, because she always had a smile on her face. Even when she was translating, she had to bend forward to translate, which was very painful because of her back, but she did it. So she was a good mimic also. I'll not talk about that. So anyway, in her last days, I'll just end quickly. In her last days, she gave me a wonderful chance to serve her. She said actually, when we had been pushing her for quite some time actually to come and stay with us, but they didn't want to trouble us, so they were staying independently. So when she came to stay, and of the initial 2-3 weeks, because of her health, she was in very poor health, and she had to depend on us for many things. So she once took me aside and said that you must be regretting now that you have called me, because look at how much I am troubling you. You must be regretting it. So I told her, no, Amma, it's not at all a problem. We're very happy to serve you. So in her last few weeks and last few months, she taught us so many lessons, so many things we were able to realize. I really cannot encapsulate, we're already late. So, she taught us so many lessons, she, very intense experiences, lot of ups and downs were there. There were periods when we thought at least twice, on, around 9th of November, we thought she's leaving her body. Again, 7th of January, we thought she's leaving her body. Both the times she recovered, and recovered to a point where we felt, well, she's perfectly alright. So a lot of intense experiences we went through. So mentally, in one sense, we were prepared. When she left, we were kind of mentally ready that, okay, she can leave any time now. It gave us intense faith in the power of the holy name, because in those periods when she was unconscious, actually, when she was conscious, she was chanting. She was making best efforts to chant. Her voice had become very thin, and chanting was an effort. But still she was every day doing to the maximum extent possible. Very often she would do her 16 rounds. Early period, in fact, she was chanting extra rounds for Palika Mataji, as somebody mentioned. So, in those periods when she was unconscious, around that 9th of November and 7th of January, when she was unconscious practically, at that time in her stupor, she was chanting continuously the holy names. So it gave us a lot of faith that, that Krishna protects us. Even if we are not in a physical condition that, we are able to, consciously remember Him, He will enter into our consciousness and make us chant. So that's one thing we saw. The power of the association of devotees, the power of prayers, that is another thing we experienced both the times. 9th of January, His Holiness Radhanand Maharaj asked all the devotees to pray in Govardhan. We thought she's leaving. She was actually looking like that. She's about to leave any moment. But 2,000 or 3,000 devotees praying in Govardhan, suddenly her health improved. Next day she was, improving already. Again on 7th Jan, when we sent out this message to the devotees saying that she is very critical, many devotees prayed and again her health improved. So the power of prayers, yes, on a material level we see this, but still the power of prayers is so strong. The benefit we have of the association of so many wonderful devotees, so many senior, sincere and very well established devotees here, it's such a benediction. One of the realizations we got, we don't get so much association when a devotee is alive actually. When a devotee is alive, not too many people pay attention to them, not so much. But when somebody is about to leave their body, everyone just swoops in and gives association, gives Mahaprasad, reads for them, serves them. Everyone just swoops in. This is a perk that is not available in any institution in the world. I can safely say this. The association and the bonhomie and the sheer unitedness we see amongst devotees when somebody is about to leave their body, this is simply amazing. So she had a glorious, departure. On her last day, second last day on 18th, Maharaj, in the morning Govind Prabhu visited her, in the evening Maharaj visited her, spent a lot of time, and she was very happily joking, laughing with him and talking to him very nicely, as though nothing has happened. And it was almost as though this was one desire that was still remaining. She was waiting to meet him in person. And the very next day, in the morning I came to the temple actually. I had come for Bhagavatam over here. And many devotees met me, asked, how is Kirtan Mati? And I was telling everyone, she's fine, she's doing very well in fact. In fact, her health has improved quite a bit. And then I went home, within 15 minutes she started saying, I'm feeling breathless, and 10 minutes later she was gone. She's just gone. And how she left, even in her final moments, when we realized that she is now becoming breathless and she's losing her, life, she said twice that I'm dying. So then we made her lie down and we all started chanting. She also chanted a little bit. And then we all started chanting. We put tulsi in her mouth, we put Ganga Jal, we put dust of the holy places on her forehead and on her tongue. Twice she took a deep breath and that's it, she was gone. So it all ended very abruptly, but it was a glorious exit in one sense, because Krishna gave her that opportunity to leave this world amidst the chanting of the holy names. And she had a desire. When she met Maharaj earlier, she had said, I would like to leave in a dignified way. And Maharaj had said, the physical event you cannot predict. You cannot say that, I will have a dignified exit. The physical event may be a very unpleasant event when you leave your body. But how you approach death is what makes it dignified. So her dignity, her life was a life of dignity. Her approach to death was very, very dignified. And finally her leaving also, her final desire was also fulfilled. She did manage to have a very dignified exit. I would really like to thank from the bottom of my heart all the devotees who made a difference to her in her last days. Obviously I cannot cover everybody, but just few I would like to mention. Vishwarup Prabhu, Govind Prabhu, Radha Gopinath Prabhu, Sohail was another devotee who served both my parents like a son for a good part of their last 5-6 years. Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj, Sukhava Mataji, His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj, and of course His Holiness Radhanand Maharaj. So I'm eternally grateful to everything that we have received from this entire congregation. Hare Krishna.